southern border. Joining us right now, former INS officer Michael Cutler. Michael, welcome to America's Forum. So glad you're with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Every state is now a border state, and your viewers should go online and check out the film. It's very important. But we are indeed a country of 50 border states, and our immigration laws are very important, and people seem to be downplaying it. The starting point for any discussion about immigration should be the 9/11 Commission report on terrorist travel and the 9/11 Commission report itself, the staff report on terrorist travel. Because if immigration had worked successfully, the terrorists couldn't have entered the United States. If the immigration system had worked properly, the terrorists couldn't have embedded themselves, hid themselves in plain sight. You know, the dreamers, so-called, that are now being given, hundreds of thousands given authorization to stay here. Incredibly, there's no interview. There's no field investigations. So how do you know who somebody is when they come to you at, let's say, age 30, claim they entered the United States as kids? We don't know what their true name is. We don't even know for certain their citizenship or when they got here or why they came. And if you look at the threat posed by ISIS, threats posed by transnational gangs and terrorist organizations, we're getting a lot of arrest statistics out of the administration that I don't trust. The best metric for determining border security has nothing to do with those arrest numbers. Look at the price and availability of heroin and cocaine. If our borders were secure, those substances couldn't get in. They're not produced domestically. Every gram of heroin, every gram of cocaine represents a failure of border security. So when you look at the entire system, not just once we secure the border we can move forward, why doesn't someone ask, by what process will you deal with an onslaught of millions of people who snuck into the country, evaded an inspections process that's designed to keep terrorists, criminals, and those who pose a threat to our well-being out of the country?
I was on the website, michaelcutler.net, where you really kind of talk about some of these issues and sort of flesh them out a little bit. You've just kind of put it under the framework as a law enforcement issue.
Yep.
One thing on the website earlier today, you were talking about, you know, this is not a liberal issue, this is not a conservative issue, this is really an American issue. You kind of framed the law enforcement aspect of it. Talk about the economic implications of something like this for the president.
Absolutely. And by the way, I also write for a couple of other organizations. I'll put a quick shameless plug out.
Go for it.
CAPSweb.org, Californians for Population Stabilization, Progressives for Immigration Reform. They're on the left. And I'm here in town with the David Horowitz Freedom Center addressing their Restoration Week and their conservative organization. Look, we're worried about jobs. Every politician promises to create jobs. I don't care if they're running for dog catcher or president. Why don't we talk about the need to liberate jobs? When you realize that we are admitting more authorized foreign workers into the United States every month than the number of new jobs being created, what sense does that make? And if you go to the UN website, what do they talk about? If we enact any kind of massive amnesty program, the remittances, the money wired out of the United States would skyrocket. As it is, between $125 and $200 billion is being wired from our economy to other countries. And India, by the way, globally gets the greatest amount of remittances for the high-tech workers. This isn't just about illegal aliens doing the fundamental bottom-rung jobs. We're talking about high-tech workers. We have American kids going to schools, getting the degrees, getting every qualification they need, and being passed over by people from other countries who work for a lot less money. And Americans are actually being laid off by Silicon Valley now.
All right, the president's going to unveil a 10-point plan. I want to hear the Michael Cutler 10-point plan. You've talked about a lot of what things you wouldn't do.
Right. What
are some things you would do to make us safer and also to try to build us economically?
Fundamentally, interior enforcement, interior enforcement, interior enforcement. I always like to jokingly ask people, how many times does an alien have to run the border before they succeed? And the answer is one more than the number of times they get stopped. So you need to have enough agents from within the interior enforcing our laws, not only to arrest illegal aliens, but to conduct the fraud investigations, to make certain that there's integrity to the system. This is kind of like playing baseball right now without having anybody take the field for the outfield. Anybody who hits the ball over the infielders' heads gets an in-the-park home run. We've got to have enough agents from the interior. Right now you got 7,000 immigration agents, ICE agents. Half are doing customs work. New York City has 40,000 police officers. What do you think would happen to New York's crime rate if we had 3,000 cops instead of 40,000? We really need to have thousands more agents, more immigration judges, more immigration lawyers. We need the machinery to make certain that an alien who gets arrested stands a good chance of facing consequences. Schumer, by the way, screaming about how trespassers in New York aren't being prosecuted, and that's why they trespass on the Brooklyn Bridge and the Trade Center. And he said they should be going to jail for 5 years. But yet Mr. Schumer at the same time says, well, if you trespass on America, you've earned citizenship. We admit more than 1 million lawful immigrants every year. How many more do you want to admit? We can't deal with that onslaught.
Well, let me ask you about, seems like some point of compromise, because there has been some discussion with the Chamber of Commerce and especially Silicon Valley saying that some of these highly trained workers that maybe will increase the amount of work visas for them. Do you agree?
Absolutely not. I couldn't disagree with them more fervently. The Chamber of Commerce created, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce created something called the Discover America Partnership. Because of them, we've increased the number of visa waiver countries from 26 on 9/11 to 38 now. Chile became number 38 this past March. The 9/11 Commission warned that the way we gave out visas compromised national security. We needed to tighten the process. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, if they had their druthers, would remove our borders altogether. As for Silicon Valley, Gates and Zuckerberg have pumped over $1.5 billion into pushing comprehensive reform because it would triple the number of H-1B visas. Senator Ted Cruz, a conservative, wants a 500% increase in the number of H-1B visas. Meanwhile, Silicon Valley last month laid off 18,000 American high-tech workers. Does it sound like we have a shortage? You know, when politicians say that we need to bring in foreign workers because the schools in the United States don't turn out the engineers and programmers and so forth, in the next sentence, what do they tell us? Foreign students going to those schools should be having green cards stapled onto the diplomas. You know, the immigration laws used to be the primary responsibility of the Labor Department. That's how we built the middle class. This is about protecting American jobs and American lives, and it's time that the politicians went back to the fundamental idea of protecting America and Americans, irrespective of party.
MichaelCutler.net is the website, along with several other things that you shamelessly plugged.
Yes, I did.
We appreciate your coming in today, and obviously this is an issue that we're going to follow right here on Newsmax TV. We'll want to hear from you as well on Twitter, Facebook, or send us an email, and of course much more coming up on America's Forum.